He's going in, he's shooting the individual in the back of the head, and he's gone.
A serial killer like no other. An executioner prowling the Midwest.
He didn't come to Wichita to do anything else but find someone to kill.
There's no motive and no mercy.
Who wants to sneak up behind him and put one in their head?
You're probably scared or the fact that you live.
He put the gun to my forehead, then pulled the trigger.
I'm M. William Phelps, investigative journalist, and I have an obsession. Serial killer, cold cases.
Now, nearly 10 years later, investigators say they still need the public's help.
For me, it's personal. My sister-in-law was murdered, and her killer has never been caught. These killers are still out there. Their victims deserve justice. And just one new clue could make all the difference. I don't have a badge, but I do have something the cops don't have. Someone who understands the dark mind of a murderer.
As I started killing again and again, I saw it as a purpose.
Because he is one. It's after 2 p.m. on April 8th, 1992. A woman walks into her friend's shoe store at a strip mall off Interstate 70 in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Hello?
It looks deserted, so she calls out for assistance.
Is there anybody back there?
Nothing. Then she sees the cash register open. She calls 911.
Hi, I just walked into my friend's store. She never leaves it empty, and the cash register's open. Hello?
What she didn't see is her friend's body. 26-year-old store manager Robin Fuldauer, lying face down in the back room. A bullet wound behind her ear. To police on the scene, it looks like a robbery gone wrong. But they have no idea what they're in for. Because over the next 30 days, 5 more clerks in strip malls across 3 Midwestern states are executed in the exact same way. And 20 years later, the I-70 killer has never been caught. There's a thread that connects all these cases together. The I-70 freeway. People travel up and down this road. They keep to themselves, they listen to the radio. But there's also evil out here. There's someone committing crimes so heinous because he just pulls off the highway, stops, kills, and moves on. And it seems there's no motivation behind it.
We thought robbery at first, is what we're thinking. But there's signs at the crime scene investigation that more could have been taken, and was robbery really the motive?
Lieutenant Mike Hennessy of the Wichita Police Department is my point man on this case. He's across all 6 murders and has been working the investigation for over 20 years. What's more, he knows serial killers. He supervised the undercover operation that caught one of America's most notorious predators, the BTK killer, Dennis Rader. On April 11th, 1992, Hennessy was assigned to a double homicide in Wichita, Kansas, which would turn out to be the I-70 killer's second shooting. Tell me how law enforcement discovered that there was more than one murder connected here.
Yeah, back in 1992, the primary source of communication in law enforcement throughout the nation was what we call teletypes. And it was about into the 3rd day that one of the detectives noticed a teletype coming through the area of Indianapolis, Indiana.
The teletype details the Robin Fuldauer case from just days earlier. And it provides the key that will ultimately link all the murders to one killer.
We knew from the evidence seen that we had something to compare in the form of ballistics. Shell casings was left behind in each of the cases. Once we realized that the shell casings from Indianapolis matched the shell casings ejected from the same weapon in the Wichita case, we knew we had something.
As the shootings continue, the exact same 22 casings are found at each scene and matched to the same gun.
The closest weapon we can come up with that fit the type of striations that would leave on shell casings was to be the Scorpion Intertech, which is a 22 handgun. It looks like a small submachine handgun.
It's an unusual weapon, something a collector might own. And on the primer of each bullet, another intriguing clue.
There was some type of red marking where the firing pin would strike the cartridge, and we determined through forensic evidence something that's used as a compound in the jewelry business, some type of industrial abrasive.
The substance is known as jeweler's rouge, used to polish metal. Could it be the killer's calling card?
You know, was involved some type of business that would use that type of abrasive.
All 6 victims are shot in the back of the head, execution style. Only small amounts of cash are taken. And there's no sign of sexual assault. The crimes span over 700 miles, from Indianapolis through Missouri to Wichita, Kansas. He seems to be a ghost. He's coming in and he's leaving, like the wind. And that's the scary part of this, that at any time, at anywhere along the I-70, he could strike. Criminal profiler John Kelly has seen murders like this before. He thinks we're dealing with a thrill killer. This is a particular brand of evil.
This is evil personified. This is a person who is focused on murder. He's not interested in watching somebody plead for their life. He's not even giving them the opportunity to plead for their life. He's very deliberate. He just wants them dead. He wants to sneak up behind them where they don't even see him and put one in their head.
Evil personified. Reminds me of another killer I know. We call him Raven, and he's a bad omen, all right. If you ever met this guy down a dark alley, you'd be as good as dead, which is why they keep him in a cage. So what will Raven make of the I-70 killer? The guy didn't have sex with them, and there was no physical attack. Why do you think that is?
I don't think he had time. I think he wanted to go in and out real fast. And I think he wanted to go in and shoot, and then make it look like a robbery and leave.
The guy we know uses a .22 pistol. Why?
Well, it's an easy round to pick up. 500 at a time. No one's going to question when you pick up that round. They're actually one of the most underestimated round of ammunition in the world. 22 will kill a lot of people. You got to be up close and personal with it.
These victims were shot in the head, almost execution style.
He didn't want to look him in the face.
Did you look your victims in the face?
All the time, yes. I wasn't afraid to look at him in the face.
Raven and this I-70 killer are 2 different animals. In fact, this guy isn't much like any other serial killer I know. Why not a knife? Why not strangle these victims? Why not all those usual ways that serial killers kill? Because we rarely see a serial killer use a gun.
I believe this guy's using a gun because it's the most thorough, it's fast, gets the deed done, there's not a lot of blood splatter. He's out the door, he's gone.
It sounds almost like a hitman. But why would a professional leave ballistics at the scene? April 11th, 1992. At LeBride Formal Wear in Wichita, Kansas, 32-year-old store owner Patricia Majors and 23-year-old employee Trish Smith are closing up.
This one's so pretty.
They received a phone call from a customer, no one they knew personally. The customer was looking for a cummerbund.
Kindly, they agree to wait for the gentleman to come and collect the item. It's after 6 p.m. on a Saturday, and the strip mall is almost deserted. Minutes later, there's a rap on the window.
Trish Smith went to the door
Do you mind giving it to him? He's paid, he's fine. Yeah.
and had a cummerbund in her hand, get ready to basically just pass it off. However, it was not going to be the customer that they thought it was. The killer walked on in
In the back. Stop talking. Get in the back.
and herded the two girls, both our victims, to go towards the back. It happened pretty quickly. We know that our customer looking for the cummerbund arrived at the store approximately 15 to 20 minutes after closing time and saw that the lights of the business was off.
Hello?
But he walked in anyhow because he knew that someone there was expecting him.
Hey, I'm the guy that called earlier for the cummerbund.
Seconds later, he's met by an individual with a handgun. The killer tells him to come back with him.
Back of the store. Come on. No, hey. Go.
I have them in the back. I have them tied up. I just need you to come back so I can get away. He knows if he did that, something very bad would happen. So he basically enters dialogue with the killer, telling him that this is none of my business.
I didn't see anything, man. I didn't see anything.
After a little bit of banter back and forth, the killer tells him, just, okay, go on, don't tell anybody, get out of here.
The man escapes and calls 911.
Call comes out to the police as a suspicious character with a gun. So the officers arrive probably a little over an hour after the actual incident occurred. And they go in not knowing what to expect. And they go towards the back. And of course, to the surprise, they see two individuals on the floor that had sustained gunshot wounds. They did take Trish Smith to the hospital because there's some signs of life.
Patricia Majors is dead at the scene. Trish Smith later dies in the hospital. A bird's eye view of the area shows how the layout of the strip mall offers rapid access and escape routes for the killer.
What we have here is an aerial overview of the site of the homicide in Wichita. In front of the strip mall is Highway 54, which is a major east-west thoroughfare throughout Wichita. It runs right into I-35 to the east about 3 miles, which picks up I-70 to the northeast by using I-35. And that's what we figured as far as the suspect uses as an escape route.
It seems the killer did his homework with the location. Did he research his victims too? You think he stalked them at all?
Yeah, he knew there was at least one female in there. He was probably surprised to find two because the owner was in the back working late there, trying to close up while Trish Smith was finishing up with the last of the customers. Because he had no way of knowing that they're waiting on a late customer to come in. And he got lucky there as far as getting to the door and then unlocking the door because the keys are still in the door.
Within a few days, after matching bullet casings to the Robin Fuldauer murder in Indianapolis, detectives realized Smith and Majors are the second and third victims of the I-70 killer. And now, they have a witness description to go on.
We were able to come up with a forensic composite drawing.
In an era when only banks have video surveillance, This sketch is an incredible breakthrough. Detectives know their man. Now they just have to find him.
We're looking at an individual that's early 30s to early 40s, slight in build, about 5'8", medium in weight, about 140, 150. His hair, 1 to 2 inches long, a sandy blonde, reddish tint, slight stubble.
Based on analysis of the two crimes, police make some informed assumptions about the killer's MO.
This individual that we're looking for is extremely mobile. He wants to drive, he likes to drive, and he picks targets at random after doing a little research by looking around. And when he finds female targets, he takes a victim to the back and executes him. He didn't come to Wichita to do anything else but to find someone to kill.
The first 3 women killed are all young and petite, with shoulder-length brown hair. Detectives speculate that this may be the killer's type. And his next victim would confirm the theory, with a bizarre and unexpected twist. Two weeks after the Wichita attack, in Terre Haute, Indiana, at a strip mall off I-70 near the Illinois-Indiana border, it's a quiet afternoon in Sylvia's Ceramics. The petite brunette clerk uses the downtime to price some items, unaware that fate just walked in the door. Like the other victims, the clerk is shot in the back of the head from close range. Unlike the other victims, this clerk is a man. "40-year-old Michael McCown is the manager of Sylvia's Ceramics, which takes its name from his mother, Sylvia.
We believe that he walked in the store, expected a female, but Michael at that time was wearing long hair.
Fooled by a ponytail. It shows just how fast this killer operates. And it backs up Raven's theory. No way this guy looks his victims in the eye. For Hennessy, that says a lot about his character.
He's just someone that's weak. He's a coward. He cannot handle confrontation with male subjects. He's picking these stores not because he wants the money. He knows they're probably more likely to be female employees or owners inside the store.
Is that why he let the Wichita eyewitness go? A cowardly killer targeting the weak. John Kelly agrees.
When he's killed somebody, he's playing God and he has power over life and death. But up until that point, he's walking around feeling much, much less than others. And especially if he's smaller. If he's a smaller, frail guy, and you would expect he was probably a smaller, frail child, he may have been bullied a lot.
Picked on.
He may have been picked on a lot. And now, he's come back. He's taking it out. It's all coming out. You know, what was perpetrated on him, guess what? He's gonna abuse somebody else.
It's an interesting psychological diagnosis. But I'm wondering, there's a ruthlessness about this guy. Could we be looking at a trained killer? He strikes at random, and no one sees him coming. He's getting a thrill out of pulling over, popping these clerks in the head, and taking off.
Absolutely, yeah, that's what he's doing. I mean, this guy's really into the rush of the kill.
There's robbery in each case, but it seems to be an afterthought.
He kills him, he hits the register, grabs what he can grab, he's out the door.
He makes tactical use of the interstate.
I-70's easy access. Easy off, do the deed, easy on. Back on I-70 and he keeps going.
And he's targeting female clerks in strip malls.
His high starts the moment he finds his perfect shot with the perfect victim.
It all seems so calculated, like an assassin. Kelly thinks this guy's taking revenge for a lifetime of humiliation. I want to know what Raven thinks.
He's a darer. I think he dared himself to do this. I don't think this was a revenge thing. I think it's just something that he was capable of doing, so he could probably pull it off. This guy probably came out of the military from Desert Storm. He has bad action, and he decided to have his own little party, and he got carried away with it.
Raven could be onto something. The Midwest along I-70 is a big military area, with major air and army bases in Kansas, Missouri, and Indiana.
Is it possible that someone with a military background? Yeah, absolutely. We hear about soldiers coming back and having difficulty readjusting. Someone has snapped.
Lieutenant Hennessy's talking about PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, the symptoms of which include insomnia, paranoia, and outbursts of rage. Is the I-70 killer an ex-soldier who snapped? It could explain the random nature of his killing spree.
We have to look at, something happened in this individual's life to set him off, something personal.
If the I-70 killer is a retired vet, it would also account for his apparent lack of employment.
We're talking about someone that's focused on killing, and that's a full-time job for anybody.
I can picture him. I can picture him in his vehicle on the I-70, cruising along at speed so as not to draw attention to himself. In a vehicle much like the one that's beside me, or in back of me, or in front of me. And he's thinking about his next murder. He's going over it in his head. He's fantasizing about it, how he's gonna pull into that mall, how he's gonna stop, how he's gonna park, how he's gonna watch. And he's gonna look for that girl, that fantasy of his. He's gonna put her in there, and then he's gonna act. And then he's gonna put on his superficial charm. He's gonna walk in, he's gonna ask a couple questions, and he's gonna pull out his gun, and bang, she's gone. And he's on to the next town using the I-70.
In less than 20 days, he's murdered 4 clerks and clocked almost 1,500 miles. From Indiana to Kansas and back. With such a widespread killing spree, detectives wonder which unlucky Midwest town will be his next target. 6 days after the Terre Haute shooting, they get their answer.
I believe the individual probably did stay in the parking lot and watched that store, maybe several other stores in the area. And once he seen that the coast was clear and he could go in and the only person there was the employee, he did what he showed up to do.
I'm with Detective Don Stepp in St. Charles, Missouri. It was here on May 3rd, 1992, that the I-70 killer took his 5th victim, 24-year-old Nancy Kitzmiller.
Nancy wasn't supposed to be working that day. She was filling in for another individual who wanted the day off.
Nancy is fresh out of college and due to start a new job with the government in 2 weeks. In the meantime, she's happy to cover a shift at Boot Village, where she enjoys 2 of her great loves: Western clothes and country music.
Is it safe to say she was the all-American girl?
Absolutely. She was the kind of girl that every father would want as a daughter.
It's a Sunday afternoon and business is slow. So Nancy's probably glad to see a customer walk in, not knowing that it's the last customer she'll ever serve.
Nancy was found face down in the storage room with a gunshot wound to the back of the head.
Investigators recognize the pattern. the open register, and the casing with the telltale trace of Jeweler's Rouge. Detective Stepp explains how that curious red marking ends up on the primer of each shell casing.
After the round is fired, you have two components. You have the shell casing, which is the brass section, and you have the projectile, which is the lead section. The lead section is going to go through the barrel and gets marked up by the lands and grooves of the barrel, which are unique to each individual weapon. The shell casing is the same way as well. The shell casing not only is going to have extraction marks from being pulled out of the automatic weapon or semi-automatic weapon, but it's also going to have another feature on the primer. Every primer, when it gets hit by the firing pin, is going to leave a different mark as a different weapon. So
Somewhat like a fingerprint.
it's exactly like a fingerprint.
It means the killer may have used Jeweler's Rouge to buff or remove rust from the firing pin of his weapon. Then, when the pin strikes, it leaves little red fingerprints on every shell. From the type of weapon he uses, investigators already knew the I-70 killer is probably a firearms collector or enthusiast. But this shooting makes them realize something new. The killer always picks stores with low customer traffic and strikes during the quietest hours.
If he knows what he's doing, he's going in, he's not wasting a lot of time. He's getting accomplished what he wants in a short amount of time, and he's gone. I think the #1 key to that location was there was nobody in the store at that time. There was one employee, and their avenue of escape is right there at Highway 70 with only 2 stoplights between there. You're not going to get lost. Once someone gets on I-70, you can be anywhere in the United States. It's a great avenue of escape.
You look at the on-off ramps near the strip mall where Nancy was murdered, it seems like this guy kills almost like he's stopping for gas.
Our killer got off I-70 right there, drove a couple hundred yards, killed Nancy Kitzmiller there, then got back on the I-70 and headed the opposite way. That's access. That's what he's looking for.
There's a killer on I-70. His murders seem random. His motives vague. And he leaves no trace.
Most serial killers will leave behind DNA, skin cells, blood, even semen. But this guy here, the I-70 killer, he's different. He leaves behind shell casings and bullet fragments.
Each casing is marked with an abrasive called Jeweler's Rouge, a tantalizing clue, like something out of Hollywood. But I don't think it helps us much. A lot of firearm enthusiasts use rouge to clean their weapons, and they're not breaking any laws. No, bullets won't catch this guy. We need a smoking gun. Raytown, Missouri, May 7th, 1992. Video store owner Tim Hickman is repairing a TV set when he notices a suspicious man.
I'd set a TV on the counter. I had it open and I was looking at the chart, the technical manual for the TV. And I look up and I see a gentleman coming from the grocery store. The reason it caught my attention was he was wearing like a tweed or a herringbone jacket. It was kind of warm. And I'm like, wow, you don't see that too often, somebody wearing a sports coat when it's so hot.
What happens next?
He stared at me and I stared at him, and he looked at me for a second and then turned, and I lost sight of him.
The man is walking towards the shop next door. where 37-year-old Sarah Blessing is working alone.
Four or 5 minutes later, I heard a loud pop. And I went, that sounded like a gunshot. So I jumped the counter and I ran to my door and I opened the door. And as I looked out, the door to her shop was closing and the same gentleman was going around the corner right here. So I ran back inside, grabbed the phone, and that's when I ran next door to the shop and started calling Sarah's name.
Sarah! Sarah!
And I creeped in and I could see her feet sticking out of her back room, and that's when I immediately dialed 911.
Sarah! Oh my God. Sarah?
I felt really guilty that I probably didn't act fast enough. So, if I'd have called right away, they might have got her.
And that's been bothering you, huh?
Many years. Many years.
Tim is so troubled by the incident, he even wishes the killer had targeted him instead of Sarah.
I was alone. He looked directly at me. There was no one else in the store, and he chose her. I could have probably defended myself.
This killer is a coward, all right. He gets away with murder and leaves good people like Tim shouldering the guilt. And it's not only guilt that Tim is burdened with. He's haunted by a question that he just can't get out of his head. Why? Why did this monster kill Sarah? As with the other shootings, some cash was taken from the premises, but hardly any.
There couldn't have been anything in that register. I mean, how much money could be in there that he could commit murder? For that much money? There couldn't have been any. The place was not packed all the time. I mean, it wasn't that busy.
And he didn't even take all the money.
No,
So
he did not.
Whatever the motive, Tim just wants this killer caught.
do the investigators come back and talk to you as time goes on?
Yes, they have several times. They've called me up or came by where I live and say, you know, could you come in and look at a photo lineup? We have some suspects or some people you could look at, but it's never panned out. There's never been anything there.
And I think, is there anything I'm missing in any of this that I haven't asked you that you want to say?
I just hope this helps. And if somebody knows this guy, if he was on a road trip, if he was traveling from one side of the country, maybe to a city, somebody knows him. Somebody can remember back in '92, a friend, family member, cousin, whoever, call. Let's clear this up. A lot of families want an end.
I think you need an end to it too, Tim, huh?
Yeah, I do.
By June 1992, the I-70 killer has left a trail of bodies and shattered lives across the Midwest. But then, just as suddenly as his reign of terror started, it stops. The months roll by. 6 victims in 30 days, then nothing. Why? Raven always tells me, serial killers never stop killing for good, unless they're incarcerated or dead.
Once you cross that line, that border of being a murderer, you're a murderer for life. You can't go back. You're going to go out and commit murder again. It took me quite a bit to jump over that line the first time. The second time, not so much. Once I realized that I could kill, just move on, and never have to look back, just an easy concept to accept. And that's why
So is the I-70 killer in jail for a different crime? Or did the demons in his head get too much for him? And he turned that 22 on himself. In the year after the final murder of Sarah Blessing, investigators explore both those scenarios and more. They interview incarcerated suspects and back-check dead ones. But there's no clean match. A coast-to-coast manhunt gains national press coverage, but still no killer in custody. And then, in the winter of 1993, more murders. 3 shootings of brunette female clerks in small stores in Texas match the MO of the I-70 killer. If it is the same guy, his hunting ground has grown by 600 miles. And his victim count jumped from 6 to 9. Are they connected?
We definitely think it could be because of the nature of the way the killings occurred. The same victimology, how it went down, all that is very similar to ours.
Geographically, it makes sense too. I-70 links via I-35 to Wichita. Then it's a clean run south into Texas. But not everything matches. Ballistics evidence points to a different gun.
You've been a cop a long time, Mike. What's your gut tell you on these cases?
It's related. Yeah, it's going to be related. He changed weapons because of the media attention.
But Hennessy's hunch isn't the only evidence. Because the third Texas victim, 35-year-old Vicki Webb in Houston, survives. January 15th, 1994. Vicki is working alone in her gift shop, talking to a male customer.
He was asking questions more or less about the area, about the traffic in the store, questions involved with retail and involved in the store and the space.
My niece, I think, would love this place.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's coming to meet me soon.
Oh, lovely.
Describe him for me, Vicki, if you will.
I would say that he was probably about 5'6", 5'7", wearing clothing that was not up to date by any means. It was just more like early 80s type, sweater, ivory pants, boots.
And his hair.
Mm-hmm. Sandy blonde, short.
So tell me what happens next.
He pointed at a frame that he wanted to purchase and said, I think I will take this one.
Lovely, isn't it?
She'll really like it.
And as I was walking back to the counter, I never heard him at all come up from behind. I simply heard the deafening sound behind my ear.
Vicki is shot at point-blank range in the back of her neck, but she's still conscious.
I thought to myself, oh God, please don't take me now. I have a 13-year-old daughter. And then I simply went into survival mode.
Vicki decides to play dead, hoping the killer will leave. But he's not finished with her yet. January 15th, 1994. Vicki Webb lies on the floor of her gift shop in Houston, Texas. A bullet lodged in the top of her spine. Still conscious, she can see the man who shot her, but she can't move. She plays dead.
He jumped over me to go behind the counter. I'd already told him it was a slow time of the year. I probably had $75 in the cash drawer. That was about it. At that point, I couldn't really see except for his pant leg and his shoes, but I could hear him going through the cash drawer. He came back to me, literally rolled me over, pulled me down just a little bit from where I was. And actually undressed me from the pants down.
Was it a sexual thing for him, or do you think it was more or less to shame you, or?
I don't think that it was sexual. It was very fast. It was just very quick. He literally just yanked, the pants down, and that was it.
What happens next?
He came up over me with the gun, put it to my forehead, and click. For whatever reason, it did not go off.
Suddenly, the killer hears a car pull up, and he leaves the store. Vicki thinks her ordeal is over.
My first thought was I needed to call for help. And as I laid there and tried to call for help, of course, my breathing was so shallow that barely a sound would come out. And I thought, okay, well, I have to get up. And I tried to feel where my arm was, and I thought, oh my gosh, did I, black out and this man carved off my arms and legs because I can't feel a thing.
Vicki can't move. The bullet in her spine has paralyzed her from the neck down.
Shortly thereafter, the bell rang on the door. A couple came in, and then unfortunately, that was the first time the pain flooded in.
And what did that feel like?
Well, childbirth to me is about a 4, and that would be about a 10. Yeah, just excruciating.
Sorry.
Me too.
So a woman comes into the store?
It was she and her husband.
Excuse me? Can you please get some help?
Vicki is rushed to the hospital, where she survives because of an anatomical quirk, an abnormally large spinal column.
The way the bullet came in, it actually went right in between C2 and C3, right at the top. It shattered a bone, and the bone fragment hit my spinal cord, which paralyzed me.
Vicki is lucky to be alive, but will she ever walk again? Miraculously, after 3 months, she makes a full recovery, reversing her paralysis through rehabilitation. As for the bullet, it's still lodged in her neck today. So the only evidence to the crime from him really is inside you.
That's correct. And I'm going to keep it until I pass away, even though the police would like it.
Still, police know enough to say that the gun used in Vicki's attack and the 2 other Texas shootings is not the same as the 6 Midwest murders. But almost everything else points to the same killer. Remember that composite sketch from the Wichita case? Vicki takes one look and sees her attacker.
This is him. You sure? Absolutely.
But seeing the I-70 killer on paper isn't enough for Vicki. Amazingly, she wants to see him again for real, in the flesh.
I want to know why. I want to know what happened. What turns you into a killer? What turns anyone into a killer? I want him brought to justice. I want to see him face to face. Tell him he didn't win.
So you believe he's still out there?
Yes, I do.
And do you believe he's still killing?
I don't believe that someone with that mind, that brain that's just a little askew, can stop himself. I think somebody needs to stop him.
If this guy has killed again, then he's changed his MO. Because as far as investigators are concerned, Vicki Webb is the last victim who fits the pattern.
Is he out there nowadays? He probably is. One time we thought BTK had died or was in prison, and then he resurfaced because of his arrogance.
The BTK killer, Dennis Rader, murdered 8 women and 2 men between 1974 and 1991, then stopped. Hennessy and his team heard nothing for almost 15 years, until 2004, when BTK sent them a letter. Now, he's serving 10 life sentences. We know the I-70 killer took 6 lives. And if the Texas cases are connected, then it jumps to 8. But did he really stop killing? I want to hear what Raven thinks. The survivor, Vicki Webb. What does her story tell us, Raven?
I don't think he stopped. I don't think he stopped doing crimes. He had a plan. He had a set plan that probably scared her the fact that she lived. I think it scared him into realizing that he wasn't as good as he thought he was. Not everything happens like it's supposed to happen. Something always comes up. This boy went over to put little kinks in our plan. And we have to alternate and deviate them to accomplish what we have to do.
Like any predator, a serial killer must adapt or die. But the fact this guy undressed Vicki Webb makes me wonder, was he already changing? Becoming more sexually driven?
Well, the good news sexual overdose is because I had this same tendency, even though I never had sex with some of my victims. The idea of having a woman there around you, and just the idea of thinking, well, what does she look like? You can't say no now.
If Raven's right, the I-70 killer could still be out there, flying under the radar with a new MO. Maybe he ditched that .22 pistol, took one last exit ramp, and settled in a neighborhood near you, where nobody suspects him. One thing's for sure, he needs to be brought to justice, so the families can get some peace.
20 years later, family members are still living and grieving for what you did.
Somebody must know this guy. If you do, don't hesitate. Call it in.
It's not a waste of our time. If we don't know something that you have, I can't work on it.